start again. It's a redskin.
What's going on, everybody? It's the Bull Show, aka Aidan, and welcome back to another video. Today, I want to talk about an important component of our team and the success of our team, and that is the defensive side of the basketball. At the end of the day, at the core component of our team, just how good is our defense overall? What can we do to improve? And where do our weaknesses lie within this defense? Because I think, of course, that the course of these 7 wins and 3 losses that we have had a really good defense, but does it match up, I guess, to other teams? And what is kind of the biggest disappointment of our defense as well? We'll be talking about the positives and negatives of all of those things, but before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bull Show, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls defense. How good is it? Is there room to improve? And overall, can it just get better in general with the players that we have on the team right now? So the first thing I want to talk about in relation to defense is that the necessity of defense is vital towards any team. If you want to be a good team in this league, you want to be a championship level team in this league, playing defense is an absolute necessity throughout the course of the season and especially in the playoffs as well. To have a team that has been going on strong with consistent defense every single game is going to be a team that will end up going very far in the regular season, win majority of regular season games, and will probably make a very long run in the playoffs, if not win the whole thing itself. Defense is very, very important. Now, the Chicago Bulls, we look at teams like the New York Knicks, we look at teams like the Utah Jazz, you look at teams like the Lakers when they won the championship, and they have a common goal within their team. They are elite defensively. So as a Bulls team, we're trying to aspire to become to that elite standard of defense, and just whether or not we can live up to the defensive capabilities of those teams, not only this season, but seasons of the past, we have to match up and see how well we can be defensively with those teams. So I guess the question that should be asked is, our defense good? I 100% believe in my heart this defense is very good when it's been focused on. For example, we are one of the best in terms of turning the ball over in relation to other teams. We make the other teams turn the ball over, and we can end up getting good fast break opportunities in transition. We are one of the better teams in deflections. We do have a really strong foundation of athletes on the team that can play perimeter defense. When it's on, when everybody's focused and engaged and connected defensively, we have one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. And I know so many people from analysts to reporters to media spokesmen to YouTubers all have questioned our defense. And at the end of the day, I think we can all safely say, with 10 games of the regular season, 4 games of preseason, our defense is going to be just fine in relation to the NBA season, and our defense is good enough to compete with other teams in the NBA. That's all fine and good. That's a great sight to see, and obviously we are very proud of having that sort of capability on the defensive end. We were 12th ranked last year in defense, and I said consistently, despite us having a really high ranking in defense, that we were one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA because of the consistency issues that we had within all 4 quarters of these games. Now, this season, I expect us to be in the top 10 in defense. I expect us to potentially try and crack the top 5, even though we might not be able to do that. Maybe we just can crack in the top 5 in defense, just because the system put in place to play defense could be very strong for this team if we're all engaged and we're all consistent enough to play that defensive way, to go and get deflections, to go and tire people out, make people run too much to the point where we are turning the ball over, where people are throwing lazy passes. That's probably the biggest part of our defense as well, is that we make teams tired. We tire teams out just because of our energy and how fast we can run. You look at teams like the Miami Heat, another great defensive team. They're a physical team. They get you tired by beating you down physically. We might not be a physically strong team, but we are an energetic, athletic team that will run courses around you if we can, and will make you tired in that way. And that is definitely something to be very happy with as well. When we are consistent, we are a very top defensive team in the league. Now, what are some of the issues with our defense? Because it's all fine and good to have a good defense, a defense that can crack the top 10 and potentially the top 5. And I think that's just the basic answer of where our defense is right now. The question is, what is wrong with our defense in terms of some I guess, specific games? Why do we give up on some of the points that we do? And why do we end up maybe giving away leads at certain times? It's because of our defensive end and certain types of defense that we may have. Well, there are a few things we can get into in relation to that, because at the end of the day, as good as defense is, no defense is perfect. You're not going to get a team and hold them to 0 points in the NBA. There's no perfect defense. There will always be mistakes. There will always be higher quality offenses out there in the league that will dethrone defenses at times. So what is wrong with our defense in these losses? Well, I do want to specify the biggest thing, in my opinion, is when we just lose connection on the defensive end, when we're not communicating with each other, when we're not playing a certain way that we used to play with the bench and the starting lineup, and we become a little bit lazy on the defensive end. We see a lot of wide open shots. We saw it with the Brooklyn Nets. We won that game, but in the second quarter specifically, we ended up really showing our weaknesses when we do slack off on defense. And we saw a lot of wide open threes for the Brooklyn Nets. You saw it with both Philly games. You saw it with the Raptors a little bit as well. Even when we're in games and we're leading games, we become a little bit complacent on the defensive end as well, and we kind of give people opportunities to come back in these games. Those are probably the two biggest weaknesses you can look at as the Chicago Bulls defense and say, that's probably the biggest issue. It's not that we don't get enough steals. It's not that we don't get enough deflections. It's not that we don't have the players and the quality to do it. It's none of that. It's just that there are certain times where we are lackadaisical, or we're not paying attention, or we're not connected with each other on defense. And that is the issue with the Chicago Bulls. And it's probably the biggest issue that we have. And we do become complacent when we do take leads. Two things there that I think could easily be solved with more time and just more time gelling together. And those are the weaknesses of this team. And how can we end up improving these defensive things? I think it all comes down to with practice and time, patience. All of these aspects for the Chicago Bulls in terms of the defensive end is just, I guess, trying to find ways to gel together. And I think the more that we understand what this team is, the better our defense will be over time. I think we have to understand that not everything's going to come together great all the time. But the strongest standing point for this team is our defense. Our defense is our reputation right now. Our offense is not necessarily at its greatest, and we might have to talk about that at another time. I did already make an isolation video, so feel free to check that out, because I think it's a very important video for people to watch to understand why isolation isn't great. Defensively, we are strong. Defensively, that's our reputation. Defensively, we are known in the NBA right now as a great defensive team. And although there are weaknesses and lapses of concentration in the defense, I think with practice and more training and more coaching, we will see a complete and utterly strong defense throughout all 4 quarters of the game, and throughout the entire season, we don't have to lose concentration. That's where we need to get to. That's the level. Maybe if we end up getting to that level in terms of concentration and not giving up certain quarters or not lapsing out in certain quarters, we might have a #1 defense in the NBA. I definitely think we have the caliber of players to do it. I mean, you have Lonzo Ball, is an incredibly solid defender. You bring Zach LaVine into the fray, who is getting better every year in defense. If he's not zoning out, he's not becoming a little bit lazy, he is a good defender in my opinion. DeMar DeRozan's having a very good year defensively. You have players like Derrick Jones Jr. coming off the bench, can guard pretty much anybody on a team. Same with Alex Caruso, the bench leader in steals. Obviously, you've got players like Tony Bradley that makes the impact defensively. You've got Alize Johnson, who we haven't seen in a while, but he could definitely get rebounds and kind of contribute in that way as well defensively. Ayo, a very good rookie that is a very solid defender. You have Nikola Vucevic, who at the end of the day might not be the best defender, but definitely brings some stats in terms of deflections. He was one of the bigger components of some of our deflection stats is Nikola Vucevic. So there is good aspects in our defense everywhere, even in our weakest links. So we can have a really strong defense. We could potentially have a #1 defense in the NBA if we can keep the momentum up and keep that concentration up, and also just keep those winning mentalities up. And that's what I want to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a video that's threatening or discrediting the Chicago Bulls. In fact, I think this is a video praising the Chicago Bulls for their defense, because at the end of the day, our defense also keeps us in games. Let's not forget, sometimes it's not always the offense of other teams. It's not always the defense of other teams that keep them in games. For example, Philly's offense Philly's defense kept them in their games more than their offense. Their offense, they made crazy shots. You have to give them all the respect in the world for making those types of shots because we were playing really strong defense. But for the majority, our defense kept us in that game. And it's the same with a bunch of the losses that we've had. The New York Knicks loss, our defense kept us in that game. I think both Philly losses, our defense kept us in that game. Obviously, that Boston game was our offense. I think this game was our offense with the Brooklyn Nets. But overall, our defense is very, very strong, and it does keep us in a lot of competitions. It does keep us in a lot of games, and I expect to continue to see that in the future when we verse teams like the Lakers, when we verse teams like the Clippers, where we see Mavericks who are doing phenomenal, the Warriors who are doing unbelievably well. Our next two games, I expect our defense to keep us in these games, and maybe we can go and win them. And that's the most important part of our defense. It's the time when it matters the most, when we're versing the biggest and baddest opponents, maybe in the playoffs, when we're versing a really tough opponent in a playoff series. We need our defense to keep us in these games. And that's what I'm looking forward to see, just how good our defense could be. Beyond this season, beyond the playoffs, let's just see how good our defense can be consistently. And that's exactly what I want to see. And this is the video praising the Chicago Bulls for their work defensively so far, despite the very few lapses that they may have had. But I think it could be better. I'm not going to lie. I think we can improve defensively. I think we can be much better than what we are, which is a scary sight to see for the rest of the league if we can get there. It's all about the concentration and the desire to play the defense on the defensive end, and I can't wait to see if we can do it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. We'll be talking a little bit more about player acquisitions very, very soon. I've seen a lot of comments in that recent video of power forwards. Many people have brought many different players to my attention, and I'd love to continue that video and make a part 2 in the future. So thank you for all those comments. If you have any comments in relation to our defense, please let me know in the comments below. And of course, I do try to reply to every message, so I will be replying to you eventually. Take care and peace.